Hello there, I'm Scotty, you're not. Welcome back to the Smallville Retrospective. We're on Season 2, Episode 6, Redux. So, this is another Freak of the Week episode, but the Freak of the Week part of this is more like the B, maybe even C plot of this episode. Because there's so much other stuff going on, it feels like they wrote this episode and were like, there's no meteor stuff and there's no freaking week in this. So they added one because it feels almost like it's shoved in there. Like it starts off prominent and then after the opening credits happen, there's just building on other story points, and then they briefly mention stuff leading into the finale, which does have to do with the Freak of the Week, but it just, I don't know, it's weird. So, to go over the Freak of the Week plot real quick, it concerns a teenager, a cheerleader, who can suck the life force out of people, make them younger, make them older, make herself younger, make them older. She's played by her name is Chrissy here. She's played by Maggie Lawson, who looks like 30. So I think she was in her mid-20s, but still, she would of course go on to play Jules on Psych, which is where I know her from. That and that the 2000 Disney movie that was not a Disney Channel original movie, but a Wonderful World of Disney premiere film, whatever they called it, Model Behavior, which for years I thought was a Disney Channel original film, but it's not. It also starred Justin Timberlake. She played two different people. It's one of those, the Prince and the Pauper deal type thing. I don't even know if they have that on Disney Plus or anything. I'll have to talk about that one. But anyway, and we see Troy again, played by Jesse Hutch. We saw one episode last season, and he dies. Yeah, because he gets a life force lifetime. So they have him on one episode. I don't even remember what episode that was, but then here he comes back and they kill him off. It makes me think he wasn't actually supposed to be the same character. But they're like, hey, wasn't he already on the show? Oh yeah, what was the character's name? Just make him that character. I don't know. But the plot does get solved when she tries to attack the new principal in the climax. And she knocks him unconscious. Clark comes and saves the day, and she deteriorates in some bad CGI effects, and that's the end of that. The main story plot, there's like 3 different elements of the main story plot here. There is a new principal, played by Richard Gant, who you may know as the coroner from Jason Goes to Hell. And he used to be a headmaster or principal, whatever, headmaster, whatever, of Excelsior Prep, which is where Lex used to go to when he was a teenager. And there was some bad blood between him and Luther's, at least. And so he already resents Clark for being friends with Lex. And yeah, considering I don't know if we ever see him again, Richard Gant does a pretty good job in this episode, all things considered. He comes across as that tough, gruff, authority figure that you would think he could be. Richard Gant's a great choice for that. Also, I was very confused because they have a plot point. The farm is close to going under. They're having a tough time paying bills, and I went, didn't Martha just get a job? Feels like this was written before they came up with the plot point of her getting a job with Luther Corp, because it's briefly mentioned at the beginning of this and then never brought up again. All we get is, well, my Luther Corp checks aren't helping, and I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense to me. You have Luther Corp checks, and you're still struggling. This feels like it was written beforehand, and they decided it was going to come out after the last episode, so they had to retroactively add that line in. I don't know, because they started to go through the plot point of introducing Martha's father, played by John Coe, I think his name is. I don't know, an older actor. I've seen him in other things. Who, of course, is the authoritative figure who had a problem with Jonathan. Growing up, we find out that he went to ask Jonathan for Martha's hand, and he basically told him to fuck off. It resulted in a scuffle, and Jonathan hit him. We do find out later he tried to get involved after he found out about Clark's adoption, which also seems kind of selfish, but he tried. But of course, with Clark's abilities, they didn't want to let him in it. Clark wants to have a relationship with him. He even says that he's going to try to find and have a relationship with his grandfather or granddad. I don't think we ever see him again. I don't think he ever comes back, so I don't know where that goes. But the big thing that is outgoing throughout the season is that Lana finds a picture of her mom with someone else who is not her dad. Or is he? Because we see this guy whose name we do not know at the moment, but I do. And after we find out his name, I'm just confused as to why nobody knows who he is then. We'll get to it when they reveal who he is, but yeah. And then, the pictures were taken where her parents were still married. So, what's going on? Well, at the end of the episode, we find out that actually they filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. And so she was with this guy. And then they got back together, and she was born a few months after that. So this guy could be her birth father, which is something that they really go into and then decided, nah, this ain't working, and just get rid of it halfway or towards the end of this season. I don't know why. Maybe I'll watch the Talkville podcast. Maybe they talked about it and they know what happened, but I don't know. This whole thing is confusing. Pete is back to being relegated to just showing up in random scenes. He's at the torch, and then later he just so happens to be there when Chrissy is meeting the principal guy. And I'm like, Clark super speeds in, and I'm like, that person, did you see him? And I'm like, oh, it's Pete. And it's like, it makes me think they're originally going to have an extra walk by, and like, well, no, they'll see him super speed. I'll just make it Pete then. And then they give him some lines. Just could be like, hey, did you see where Chrissy went? Yeah, she was just here. And because he tells Pete to go lock the door and let anybody in, and I'm just like, that could have been anyone. It could have been anyone. It didn't have to be Pete, but it was. And Chloe doesn't do much either in this episode, other than the usual uncovering stuff about Missy, or Chrissy, or Missy, or whatever. And we find out that she goes all the way back to the class of 1921, which means wherever she got her powers, it wasn't from the meteor shower. Something happened in 1921, I guess. I don't know. This episode was no Lionel, right? Lex is in it. Oh, we get the scene where Lex shows up in Richard Gant's office, and he offering him new computers. He's, oh, father like son. Like, what are you talking about? And he recalls what happened at Excelsior Prep. Lionel came in. He offered computers to the school board. He offered something to the school board under two conditions. Lex was allowed to stay, and Gant had to leave. I know that's not his name. I can't remember the character's name. So basically, Lionel Luthor got him fired, and that's why he doesn't like Lex. Lex does thank him. You know, he's like, in some ways, you made me the man I am today, and I like his responses. I don't know if I'm ready to take responsibility for that, or something like that. Yeah. And again, I don't remember if we see him again or not, because as I recall, there's not much more with Principal stuff throughout the season, the rest of the series. I'm sure he's not in season 4 at all, which is weird. Maybe they didn't want an authoritative figure. I don't know. So I appreciated the stuff in this episode that furthers some of the background lore, especially for Lana. But that's really all you need to watch the episode for is the Lana stuff, because that's the only thing that really goes further. I don't know if Richard Gant's in any more episodes. I know the granddad doesn't show up anymore. I don't know. And watching this, I was thinking, why couldn't this have been episode 5 and Nocturne be episode 6? You talk about how they're not making enough money. It felt like this should have come before that, because the throwaway line of my Luthor Corp checks aren't helping just doesn't make any sense to me. It feels like something they had to throw into the script so they can air this episode after the previous one. If she's got a Luthor Corp job, they shouldn't be in debt. They should have more money. I don't understand it. Far be it from me to understand business. But this episode though, I'm going to give 2.5 Superman logos out of 5. It's honestly the only thing you really need to pay attention to is Lana's story in this. You don't really need anything else. I don't think anything else goes forward. I may be proven wrong as we go more into the series, but I really don't think so. And yes, that means this is probably the worst of the season, although we're only in episode 7, or 6, so who knows? It may get worse, but to me, I didn't really care for this one. Megan Lawson was good in her role, but like I said, what would normally be the main plot with the Meteor Freak of the Week thing is pushed to the back burner, which is not a bad thing, but then you need a more compelling story, and it feels like we're jumping from story to story. Lana has this going on. The new principal doesn't like Lex, and now he's punishing Clark, and then we have the grandfather thing. It's just, I don't know. And I guess it does further some story with Clark as to why he didn't get to meet his mom's dad, but that's how it goes. So, what are your thoughts on this episode? If it comes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.